How's it going, folks? My name's Stephen Wolf. Welcome to my first art video of 2024 in which we customize a high-grade RGM 79. As always, full disclosure, as of the filming and editing of this video, I'm neither sponsored nor endorsed by Bandai, Bluefin, or any Gunpla-related companies or retailers. All tools, supplies, and kits have been purchased by me. First and foremost, it should be mentioned that the kit I'm modifying is the RGM 79 GM, first released in 2001. As such, and as I mentioned in previous videos, certain elements in older Gunpla kits, such as the transparent pieces or the beam saber, were primitive or arrived unpainted. Luckily, the only painting required was for the beam saber, so I was able to knock it out quickly and cleanly. I went with a base coat of red, followed by a few layers of pink, then finally dry brushed white near the middle of the blade to best match the artwork in the instructions. Going into this build, I had a rough idea of what I wanted to see. I wanted to make a battle-damaged GM, someone that fought valiantly and won against a superior enemy force. By chance, I'd looked up at a nearby shelf and saw my high-grade Goof Custom. That's when the gears started turning. I did a fair bit of research, and thankfully, the brains behind the original Mobile Suit Gundam series kept fantastic notes, which are readily accessible through fandom Wikipedia pages. In the lore, GMs utilize a titanium composite for their armor. With a real-world material in mind, I was able to research how titanium actually behaves under duress. I happened across 3 separate videos from individuals that kept their content fun, but also informative. Retired TAC-P and SEER instructor Mike Jones, alias Garand Thumb, tested the Soviet Altan helmet to failure, utilizing a variety of firearms and biting comments.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Adam Savage took things in a more futuristic direction, testing printed titanium against commonly available handgun rounds. Finally, in a video from 2016, Dr. Matt Carricker, alias Demolition Ranch, simply said, "Let's see what happens with a 50 cal rifle." Holy. Naturally, a big thanks is owed to those talented and motivated individuals. Links to the content sourced will be in the description below. With tangible concepts of how to damage the GM's armor, I got to work building the Gunpla. Interestingly, you begin assembly with the legs and work your way up from there, unlike modern kits which usually have you start with the torso or arms. Shortly after I built the legs, I was tempted to damage the armor as I went. However, after hamming it up with a metallic Gunpla marker, I realized that without a solid idea of the story behind the damage, it would seem inconsistent and slapshod. So, I kept to the main path and assembled the Gunpla like normal. As an aside, I really appreciate how the engineers kept the single plate front and back skirts and didn't pull any silliness with the hip articulation to compensate or work around it. It makes the original design actually feel functional. For the next half hour or so in real time, I had attempted and failed to brush on the name of the mobile suit, eventually opting instead to use a marker and write it like normal. With the core assembly completed, I performed some initial damage and deformation. Seeing that the Zaku 2 machine gun had a near-identical barrel diameter as the Goof Custom's chain gun, I used the smaller, more portable option as reference, then simply used a hand drill bit that fit into said barrel as my caliber of choice. I've also found this method quite useful for wargame figures and terrain, as impact damage and spalling tends to be either very similar or slightly larger than the firearm's projectile. From there, I hacked away with metal sanding tools to reflect ricochets and the mech skinning its knees in the ensuing scramble for cover. Lucy's harrowing story of survival was beginning to take shape. I used Vallejo's oily steel to represent the revealed titanium under the GM's pale cyan paint, and Vallejo's flat earth for the dirt and muck ground into the feet and knees. Near the end of the build, I'd end up using Agrak's Earth Shade, as I really enjoyed how dirty and brutal it made all the damage look. Assembling the head, I was presented a golden opportunity to establish threat. As a tribute to Noble 6, I scraped a near miss into the helmet, and painstakingly utilized an X-Acto blade to simulate the visor's glass spiderwebbing from the impact. If my research is correct, while the forehead camera is what the pilot sees, tucked away behind the visor is the mobile suit's dual sensor suite. Damaged sensors, or worse, a destroyed head assembly, would be the sudden end of any engagement, so for me it was practically required to add these elements. With the completion of the shoulders and right arm, I was able to add a few more impacts as well as defensive wounds. Any medical professional can confirm people tend to put up their arms to protect their head when attacked, so I felt it appropriate to add multiple impacts to the underside of the right arm, shots that would have cut the head assembly to ribbons if they had connected. The final parts to be assembled and shredded before I could apply any washes was the shield. I knew it was practically required to have significant slashing damage to the shield, as the Goof Custom sword is an iconic weapon. After careful comparison, I found a knife-shaped sanding tool appropriate to simulate the impacts, then set to work finishing the build.